Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. We just wrapped up analysis on game number 3 between Man and Bly. We're about to jump into game number 4, analyzing that. But first, let me talk a little bit about that promo you just saw. If you're interested in any of the working on any of the cool graphic design features, audio engineering, video production, etc., go check it out at www.fullsail.edu. Just tell them what type of programs you're interested in, and they'll give you information about all their educational opportunities they can offer you. I encourage you guys, if you're in high school or if you just want to get more education for a potential career switch, perhaps you've been working for a couple of years and you'd rather get a job that pays a little better, is a little more interesting. Go check it out because there's a lot of amazing opportunities. It's a career field that's going to be there for the foreseeable couple thousand years. I mean, everyone loves video games, right? And video games need graphics and audio and production. So go ahead and check it out. It's a cool opportunity. It only takes a minute or two of your time. Let's jump into game number 4. At this point, Bly is up 2-1. And a couple important things to talk about here are the importance of seizing opportunities. Then we'll talk about how you can use deductive reasoning while scouting to scout more than what actually is on your screen. A little bit of Sherlock Holmes style stuff, although much more basic in this case. You can get more advanced later. Let's talk about a basic example. And then also how you can add when, let's say, you're worried about dealing with Colossi and you've got Hydrodus. Should you add in Corruptors or should you transition over to Mutalisk if you're building that Spire as a next type of tech path? So first, let's jump into this game at the 4:45 mark. And, this is a pretty standard situation you have in Zerg versus Protoss. Zerg's got the Zerglings hanging outside the base. Protoss is, got the wall, the cannon, etc., blah, blah, blah. What's really important here is to seize opportunities, right? So, there's a cool Greek historian who had he's around in the Punic Wars and stuff, who had this quote, said, "In war, we must always leave room for strokes of fortune and accidents that cannot be foreseen." So that means, let's say you're Bly. Well, you can't get in here, right? You just can't do it. There's no way you can break through this little hole. But you know what? Maybe he'll move to pro because he thinks it's safe. Maybe he'll just go to build a building real quick. You never know when you'll get lucky. And it's one of those situations that actually a lot of world-class Protosses will do it. They're like, you know what? I'll step aside for a second to go build another building. That way I don't have to take a guy out off the mineral line. It's something you see all the time. They'll send a probe a hair before the Zealot pops out of the gateway. All these type of things where they figure you're safe. They might make a tiny mistake. A tiny mistake, in most Zergs, or if you're just focused on your own type of game, you won't take advantage of it. But you gotta always be ready to seize opportunities. And one thing that's important is look at Bly's camera. We're gonna play the next couple of seconds of this game. We're gonna lock it on Bly's camera, and look at where his camera goes, right? So he's doing his macro, but if he's not macroing, he's jumped on the screen right here, right? He's macroing, moving overwards around, injecting, building stuff, looking at his screen, right? And as soon as he sees that probe step aside, he seizes the opportunity, right? And the important thing here was how ready he was to seize that opportunity, right? He was hitting his macros injects, but anytime he wasn't, boom, right back on the position of the game board where there could be a lucky happenstance that would allow him to get in there. And now, he's getting, I think he only got 1 or 2 probe kills, mana control it pretty well. But 1 or 2 probe kills, a lot of lost mine time, and great scouting information were all done by Bly. So whenever you're playing, don't just think about the way things are supposed to go, right? Like, you got all these brilliantly laid plans. There's so many famous war quotes about how luck is actually really important in war. It's not something to be looked down upon about, getting lucky, move the probe. No. In real war, you can never expect what's going to happen. In Starcraft, you can never know 100% sure what your opponent's going to do. So you've always got to be ready to maximize any potential opportunity that comes your way, to take advantage of good luck to the highest degree. And that's exactly what Bly did here. And it was really awesome to see the way his camera was just always ready to jump on any opportunity he had to get in there and do some damage. So that was pretty cool. Man eventually cleans this up. Bly's trying to make sure this Stargate's not canceled. And then to confirm it, what he's going to do is he's going to grab this Overlord. And look at the timing of this, right? He knows exactly how far along his Stargate was. He sends his Overlord so that it'll get there and the Stargate will either be done or it'll be gone. You don't want the Overlord to get there and it's like 80% done. Then the Overlord dies and you're like, well, maybe he did cancel it. No, you want to wait till it's done and you can get in there and you can try to see what unit's being built in there. Even though, that they can cancel and change, but it'll slow down their progression for your unit anyway. So, that was just really awesome that Bly did. Something a lot of people overlook in games is your ability to take advantage of opportunities, and that's something Bly is really, really good at. I mean, a lot of players are, but it's the trademark of a good aggressive player is knowing when are the points in the game when your opponent might make a mistake, and so those are the points that you got to be ready to jump on them when they do make that mistake, because nobody's flawless. So next thing we're gonna talk about is Bly and his scouting, right? So he's going through this game, he's scouting around, right? Seeing what's going on, checking the third base, getting this watchtower. That's the point of the game where he's like, okay, wait a minute. It's 9 minutes and 40 seconds into the game, right? 9 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. My opponent doesn't have a third base, right? I've got the Zergling over there guarding the third base. My opponent's not moving across the center of the map. He's not moving across the top of the map because that same Zergling that's at the third base would see that as well. He's either hiding in his base, but 940 is a bit late for that, or moves along the right side of the map. If he's why don't I just check? Right? Go ahead and check. Because remember we talked about this is a situation where Bly, again, similar to game number 2, he's using Hydralisk early game, right? And I talked earlier in game number 2 about how if you're using Hydralisk, it's really important to make the engagement as soon as possible. As armies scale up, Hydralisk lose their value. So you want to, any type of timing, you want to attack it before it gets off the ground with Hydralisk. Very, very important. And so Bly's like, you know what? If he's in his base, it won't hurt to send these Hydralisks out to go check, see what's going on. If he's moving across the right side of the map, building pylons, getting ready to invade me, I really want to jump him before he warps in too many units because, as armies scale up, Hydralisks lose some of their value. So that's exactly what he does. He uses deductive reasoning, saying, even though I don't see his army, I can deduce that if it's not here, it's not here, it's probably over here, right? There's a lot more advanced deductions you can make in more complicated scouting situations, but that's just an example of when you scout, you're not just trying to see what you see, you're trying to see what you're not seeing, right? Are you not like, I mean, I'll talk about it again tomorrow, but in that last game, Thorazane versus Zake, right? Thorazane didn't see a third pylon, so it's got to be proxied, right? There's a lot of cool scouting things like that. But anyways, you know, he goes in there and he sees, okay, you know, he was setting up for timing. In fact, if you look at Amanda's base, he's got a bunch of gateways. He's got oracles coming in. He really wanted to go and do some damage. And you know what? If you let him get up to like 4 sentries, and he can force field the Hydralisk, and then he can warp in another line of Zealots, and Zealots can close the distance, oracles can shoot overhead, all of a sudden maybe he wouldn't be able to win this battle. But as it is, before there is a decent Protoss ground army, he can come in there, collaborate with the Hydralisk, utilize the Hydralisk speed upgrade to run down most of these units as well, and just, you know, a really good heads-up play by Bly there. You know, asserting himself on the map, knowing you want to catch those timings before they get going if you're going Hydralisk. Very, very important. So, now we're in a situation where Bly's going to kind of seize on this opportunity, put on some aggression. You know, a lot of trades here. Maybe he probably should have gone around the other way, but he just kind of wants to get in there and get some damage done. Going to be a bunch of training for a bit. Mana's going to eventually stabilize after a little bit of hardship here. Some nice, what's cool here is, how often do you see this, right? The Hydralisk kiting away from Zealots because they're just faster than the Zealots, so they can definitely kite away from those guys. I thought that was kind of cool. You don't see that in Wings of Liberty every day. So now he's at this point where he's done aggression, but his opponent, you know, he's getting these photon cannons, and there comes a point when he knows that Bly's going Hydralisk, so he's going to start to add in those Colossi, right? Now Bly sees that Colossi come out. He's getting zapped from the high ground. There's photon cannons, but Bly anticipating the fact that Mana wasn't really moving out and he was building cannons. Probably he was going Colossi, so he was actually getting a Spire. Where are we right here? He was getting a Spire behind us. Now, this comes to a point where Bly's going muteless, but let's talk about different options, right? So, he had the option. He was going Hydralisk. He could have built Corruptors. He used the Corruptors to kill that Colossi, and then the Hydralisk can theoretically deal the ground army. And you can kind of do that technique, right? But the reason why I really like what he did to go muteless instead is because the Corruptors are very expensive, right? They're not a cost-efficient way to deal with Colossi, actually. It's kind of interesting because 2 Corruptors is the same price as 1 Colossi. And to deal with Colossi, you need pretty much at least 2 Corruptors per Colossi. And you were thinking about it, okay, you're spending the same, let's say you get 8 Corruptors, they get 4 Colossi. You're both spending the same amount of money, right? So your ground armies, you're basically both taking that amount of money out of what you're putting in ground army. but those Colossi are still damaging the Zerg's ground army before they die. Whereas your Corruptors are useless. At best, the Corruptors kill the Colossi before a single Colossi shot gets out, and then it's an even situation, right? So Corruptors are never really a cost-efficient way to deal with Colossi. In fact, Heart of the Swarm, I say Vipers are. You know, you can actually get Vipers about the same time you could get Corruptors, and they're it's about a minute later, but I think they're a little more efficient because they have more utilization, and you can only get like 1 or 2, and then each one can yank in 2 Colossi. Anyway, that's a side point. But the Corruptors work if you have a big economic advantage, right? Because then you can afford to do that. Or if you're going for Broodlords later, then the Corruptors will still gain some value later in the game. But in a situation like this, where if you look at economy, Bly's not really that far ahead, right? It's 62 drones to 55 probes, right? That's a situation where if you try to go Hydra Corruptor, you're probably going to lose. Just being honest. I mean, it comes down to force fields and micro, and maybe you can drone up more and blah, 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 but it's actually not that amazing. Mutalist, though. Not only do Mutalist counter Colossi, but if you just have Mutalist, the Colossi don't actually do anything. It's not like Corruptors where you have to have ground units too, and then the Colossi can shoot your ground units. You can go just Mutalist, and then the Colossi have nothing to use their devastating attacks against. So I really like the use of Mutalist here for multiple reasons, but the main one being that I think it's a more effective response to Colossi, unless you're super committed to ground units already. But as we can see here, Bly only had a few Hydras at that point. They already died. He had a few more being built, and they're hanging out somewhere. Here, he's got some more. He's got, oh no, he canceled them. Never mind. So that was, he actually, I mean, he has no commitment to ground, just speedlings, which are fast, they can avoid Colossi, etc. So I really like the decision to go Mutalist here. His opponent's still thinking about Hydralisk, and now he can grab these Mutalists, and then as soon as he gets to his opponent's base, you know, I mean, he's got, if you look at the units tab, it's 20 Mutalists to 3 Stalkers and 4 Sentries. There's no cannons in the middle line. There's no cannons in the main mirror line. As soon as he just walks in here, it's basically instant GG from mana. So game ends there. Bly wins that fairly convincingly. But think about this. 20 Mutalists, right? Let's say he was trying to go Corruptors, right? And he would have gotten, let's say, 6 Corruptors. And then he could also gotten like 10 Hydralists for the same price, something like that. He had a little bit of extra gas left over, but something like that, 6 and 10. You think 6 Corruptors and 10 Hydralists would win a game from here? No. You know, I mean, there's 4 Sentries, 3 Stalkers, 2 Colossi, 6 Zealots. Those Hydralists, even if you kill a Colossi, they're still not going to beat that ground army. Not to mention the fact that Colossi would actually kill a lot of them first. So I really, really like the muted transition. If you just go in light Hydras, you're not committed to ground. Definitely focus on that. In general, in Heart of the Swarm, I would really avoid using Corruptors to counter Colossi. I mean, Void Rays, if they can add in Void Rays, then your Corruptors will be worthless. Not to mention the fact that in the same time you could get the Spire. If you already have Infestation Pit done, Vipers are actually the same. You know, the Hive Tech is actually cheaper than the Spire. Takes the same length. So if you already had the Infestation Pit down, your access to Vipers is just as fast as those Corruptors. You can suck up some energy from a useless building, and then each one has 2 pools. Yank those Colossi, and your ground army can be much, much stronger. So I would either go Hive Tech or Mutalist. In this case, he already built the Spire. Go Mutalist. Mutalists are a great utensil if your opponent doesn't have that Stargate play available. Brilliant play by Bly there. And just a convincing 3-1 win in the series. That wraps up game number 4. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back with a brief series overview and then, of course, the question and answer period.